Shalom, Sanbonani. My name is Mpumelelo. Welcome to this channel. I'm very grateful for the love that you show, for your continued support. I'm grateful for the inputs that you make. If you don't read these inputs, I think you are missing out. I think that if you go to the commentary section and look at the inputs that people make, the questions and the interactions, there's a lot to be gained there. I just want to say that this channel would not be where it is, and it will not survive without you and without the inputs that you make. If you are new to this channel, please consider to subscribe, like this video, and share it with friends and family. And of course, if you're a subscriber, please like this video as well if you like the content. We are, all of us, in whichever manner we make our contributions to this project of awakening. Our work, we should understand that our work is temporary. It is going to come to an end at some point. Perhaps we will be reassigned and be given another task or other tasks. But what we are doing right now is temporary, and we should all understand. It is temporary until the Messiah comes. It is possible that some of us will be reassigned and we will do other works related to the awakening. But when the Messiah comes, we will all be reassigned. Some of us will have to take the back seat whilst others are taking other roles, and we should accept that. When the Messiah comes, he will gather all the children of Israel who are scattered in all corners of the earth and restore them to the promised land according to the prophecies. Now, I never thought I would have to talk about this. Quite often I make reference to the promised land, and I say that we will be restored to the promised land. We will be gathered and be restored to the promised land, or will be taken back to the promised land. And very often I will get comments like, but we're already in the promised land. This is the promised land. They say South Africa is the promised land. Some are saying Namibia is the promised land. That's where Jerusalem is. Some are saying Mount Zion or Jerusalem is in Kenya. Some are saying it is in Congo or in the Congo region. Now, I have often said that when we speak in different languages, contradicting each other, sounding divided, that only pleases our enemy, our adversaries. I wish we could speak with one voice. I wish we could be united as soon as possible. Some of the things that divide us, I think, are obvious. They shouldn't be dividing us. The things that are written. But some of us chooses to say that which is written is false, or it has been interfered with. It's possible. But we can only go with what we have until we can prove otherwise. Now, the promised land cannot possibly be in South Africa. The promised land cannot possibly be in Namibia. The promised land cannot possibly, for that matter, be in Africa. There are simple ways of proving this. Simple ways of proving this. Among others, countries such as Egypt and Ethiopia have had a lot of interactions with Israel from ancient times. They are not confused about where Israel is. They know. Egypt and Israel have had a long history, which dates back from the time when these places were occupied. So there's historical documents in Egypt. Because we are lost, we are trying to find our feet. But Egypt will have records of the existence of Israel, at least as a land, and its people at some stage. There has been a lot of interaction. Ethiopia as well has had a lot of interaction with Israel. For that matter, the great empire Haile Selassie claims that he is a direct descendant of King Malik, the son of King Solomon. You know the story of King Solomon and Queen Sheba. You know that they had a son who later on went to Ethiopia. At some stage, his mother sent him back to Israel so that he is taught in the ways of our Almighty. And then after he was taught, then it is believed that King Solomon sent him back to Ethiopia with some of the elders of Israel. That's where we find the so-called Jewish people today, the children of Israel, who are either descendants of those elders who were sent by King Solomon to Ethiopia, and the direct descendants of King Malik, the son of King Solomon, with Queen Sheba. So those people, Ethiopia and Egypt, would be the source of information. When they talk about Israel, they are not talking about any place in the south of Egypt or in the south of Ethiopia. They are talking about a place in the northeast of Africa, or in what is called today the Middle East, the Israel of today. That's where the promised land is. I don't want to say that people are confused, but the belief that Israel is in the south or is in South Africa or the south of Egypt comes from a verse that is often quoted. And I have cautioned against the habits that we have adopted from Christianity. And those habits that we have learned from Christianity, and I'm sorry if I'm offending some of you who are Christians, but Christianity teaches people to memorize verses. When you do that, you memorize a verse out of context. And this is exactly what has happened here. People have taken a verse from a book of Genesis. It's a book. So you take one verse, you create a doctrine out of it. And I'm afraid it results into confusion. Which verse is that? This verse is found in Genesis 13:1. It is popular, it is quoted by those who believe that Israel is in South Africa. Let me read this verse for you. It says, and they either deliberately or perhaps, I don't know, they omit certain critical things that are written in this verse, but they choose one thing that confirms their beliefs. So let me read it for you. Genesis 13 verse 1. Then Avram went up from Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had. Lot went with him to the south. You see? So they say to the south. They stop there when they are quoting this verse. Then Avram went up from Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had. Lot went with him to the south. So they say, there you go. They went to the south. But in this verse alone, they have omitted some other important information. It starts by saying, then Avram went up from Egypt. Other Bible versions, they say he went out of Egypt and he went up. If you are in Egypt and you are going out of Egypt and you go up, you're going one place. You're going to Israel, where Israel is today. There's no other place. Because any other place will lead you to the Red Sea, and the other place, which is also up, will lead you to the Mediterranean Sea. So the only way you will be going up when you are in Egypt, you will be going to Israel, where Israel is today. But this is where the confusion is. They say to the south. And they say, by saying he went to the south, it means he went to South Africa. And some are saying that, take note of the fact that in South Africa, there are biblical places. There are places named after some biblical places. It's true. In South Africa, we have a place called Bethlehem. We have a place called Bethel. We have rivers that are named after, rivers that are found in the Bible, like the river Jordan. We have places called Hebron. We have places called Jericho. But who named those places? These places were named by the Dutch and by the British and by the apartheid government when we were colonized. They were not there. They never existed. But it is only these colonizers, when they came here and they named these places after biblical names like Bethlehem and Jericho and Hebron. They are not biblical places, but they were named by colonizers. I don't know how people have come to a conclusion that because they were named Bethlehem, Bethel, Jericho, Jordan, and therefore it means South Africa is the Holy Land. You're going to have a lot of problems if you reason that way. Mind you, this verse that I just quoted is quoted out of context because, like I said, that we are taught and we come with bad habits. We are taught to memorize verses. But we are selective in reading as well, because when you read this verse, it tells you he went up from Egypt. You can only go one direction when you go up. Let's resolve this seemingly problematic thing that says he went to the south. When you read further in Genesis 13:1, I will skip 2 because it just says Abraham had wealth. He was rich in gold, livestock, and silver. That's verse 2. Verse 3 says, and he went on his journey from the south as far as Bethel, to the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Ai, to the place of the altar which he had made there at first. Now, what is this story about? This story connects the story immediately after Avram when he left Haran and went to Canaan. So it starts in chapter 12. And in chapter 12, it begins with the Almighty blessing Avram and telling him to leave his home, his father's home, and go to a place where he will show him. So he left with his family, with his household, with all the people that he had, his slaves. And they went to Haran. They went to Canaan. If you read chapter 12, Genesis chapter 12, you realize that he's been journeying. Avram and his family have been journeying. And so as they were journeying, they went past the land place Shechem. Now, I'll start with Genesis 12, verse 6 to 9. Avram passed through the land to the place. When they say the land of Canaan. Please read Genesis 12, 1 and all of it, the whole of Genesis 12, to get the gist of what has been spoken. And take note of what, especially his itinerary, where he went, where he passed, and so on. This will not be a problem to people who already know what I'm talking about. They already know, they have read, there's no problem for them. This is a problem, this is meant for people who believe that the promised land is here in South Africa. Avram passed through the land to the place of Shechem. That place is in Canaan, is in Israel today, as far as the terebinth tree of Moreh. And the Canaanites were then in the land. Then the Almighty appeared to Avram and said, "To your descendants I will give this land." And there he built an altar to the Almighty who had appeared to him. It confirms what is being said in Genesis 13, verse 3. And he moved from there to the mountain east of Bethel, and he pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Almighty and called on the name of the Almighty. And now, after he had settled in Canaan, there was famine, which caused him to move to go to Egypt. And verse 10, Genesis 12, verse 10 says, "Now there was famine in the land, and Avram went down to Egypt to dwell there, for a famine was severe in the land." So from where he was, where he pitched his tent, he went down. He went down to Egypt. That's why when we read Genesis 13, he was going back to where he was. He went up, out of Egypt. And he went where? To the south, where he had pitched his tent. The south of Canaan, not the south of Egypt. It's the south of Canaan. Another problem that we're going to be faced with is that the Bible has been translated into English. So it reads as if he went from Egypt to the south of Egypt. No. He went back, if you read it in Hebrew, he went back to where he pitched his tent in the south of Canaan. Please, I want to hear your views. I'm not finished with this. I don't want it to be long. I will continue with it and give also other supporting verses and so on. But from this, please give your inputs. I would like to hear what I know. This is a no-brainer to a lot of you. But to those who believe that Canaan is in South Africa or was in South Africa, the promised land is in Africa, from these, please reread these verses. He went up, he went down. He never went out of Egypt to the south of Egypt, but he went back to Canaan, where he had pitched his tent after arriving from Haran. Please, let's read it again. Let me stop here. It's too much. I will continue with other supporting verses. Let me know what you think. I would really like us to settle this matter once and for all, at least in this channel. Other people can continue with it. We can't stop it. Thank you very much for your attention for today. If you have not subscribed, please consider to subscribe and like this video and share it with your friends and family. Toda raba. Diabo.